Hello everybody, my name is Joshua and I'd like to welcome you back to another episode of Coffee, Cats, and King, where we discuss books both new and old. I will share with you pictures of my cats who will make you wish they were your cats, and I will drink enough coffee for me and everybody watching. On my mug today, I've got my little ghosty here, and that is because the books that we are going to talk about are all about ghosts. So, I recently talked about a couple books that I read in October from Rin Chupeco, and today I wanted to take some time to do a little more of an in-depth review on those two books. Now, Rin Chupeco is a fairly new author to me. The very first thing that I read from Rin Chupeco was The Sacrifice. And this was an interesting sort of island horror that involved some Filipino monsters and mythology. So that was a really cool one. I think I ended up giving it 3.5 or 4 stars at the time. And I knew I wanted to read her other stuff, and one that really caught my eye was this lovely copy of The Girl from the Well. Well, when I went to purchase it, I realized that there was a follow-up called The Suffering, but that had this other cover here, like this. So then when I went looking for The Girl from the Well, I found this one. So of course I had to get these two instead because the covers match. And they are both, of course, immediately going to bring most people right back to the early 2000s when we all fell in love with The Grudge and The Ring. So The Suffering is a direct sequel to The Girl from the Well, although the tone of both books is very different. So we're going to go on and get into first, of course, The Girl from the Well. This book feels much more like just straight out horror. So I'm going to start by reading you the back blurb here. It says, "The dead do not always rest. Okiku knows anger and pain. They are what she last felt before her life was brutally taken from her more than 300 years ago. Now a restless spirit, she wanders, seeking out those who viciously take the lives of children. Okiku always gets her revenge. She has no remorse for the wicked, until she meets 17-year-old Tark." And it's actually described as part The Ring, part The Grudge, part The Exorcist. A fantastically creepy story to keep readers up at night. I'll agree with that. So what's really interesting about this book is that we see everything from a first-person point of view from Okiku, this vengeful spirit, ghost, entity, whatever you would like to call her. And so we get all these interesting vantage points where she is looking in on scenes that of characters who don't realize that someone else is there, that someone else can see and hear what they're doing. And we're seeing it from the side, again, of a very angry spirit. Can and will just murder people outright in very creepy, disturbing ways. This book starts out strong with a scene of a man who we immediately know is a very bad man. Okiku basically corners him in this seedy motel and starts using all sorts of horror movie tactics to freak him out to the point where this man is ready to have a heart attack before she just kills him herself in a very brutal, awful fashion. And you've got to get used to it quickly because this is going to happen throughout this book, where Okiku just decides that someone is terrible and will tear him apart. Now, The other main character that we follow through the eyes of Ukiko is Tark. And Tark is an interesting individual in that he is haunted by a different kind of spirit, a different kind of specter, one who is also very angry, very vengeful, very dangerous, but one who does not have the control that Okiku does. One who does not care about who she harms, just that she harms people, in particular anyone that gets too close to this boy Tark. And for whatever reason, Okiku is drawn to Tark. She doesn't really know why, because typically Okiku only focuses on murderers of small children after the crime has been committed. In particular, she follows these people around. She can see the ghosts of the children that they have murdered. They are basically attached with chains to the murderer, which again is just very disturbing in the descriptions that we were given. But for whatever reason, she feels very strongly as though she needs to follow Tark and see what's going on with this boy, because she knows that this other creature, this other thing, is in there with him, but doesn't know why. And she's intrigued for the first time in many hundreds of years. So this is an awesome book. It's a very brutal book, especially for a YA, and the horror elements. It almost seems to take all of those awesome horror elements that we love from Japanese horror, puts them all in one right here. Okiku uses every one of those tricks that are so effective in Japanese horror. She uses every one of them here to freak out the people that she goes after before killing them in brutal fashion. And the overall arcing story is just very well done. Like I said, this was a 5-star for me, and one that I will highly suggest to fans of horror in general, but especially to fans of Japanese horror. You're going to eat this one up, and I see a lot of 4 and 5 stars from those of you that do pick it up. Now, following that, I jumped right into The Suffering, which is the sequel, and The Suffering kind of takes place very soon after the end of the first book, so I was able to just jump right back into the characters. Now, this one, the main character we follow is not Ukiku anymore, it is Tark, and the tone of the book is very, very different immediately, because we are now in the mind of this 17-year-old boy, rather than this 300-year-old specter. And you can tell this one felt at times much more like a YA in the way that The Sacrifice did, where the dialogue, the thought process that we were seeing play out feels like that of a younger person. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think it is going to scare some people off because, like I said, some folks just are not into YA at all. And if you're one of those people, hey, personally, I think you're missing out on a lot of really good fiction, but to each their own. That said, regardless of how you feel about YA, you can still definitely pick this one up and enjoy it, because just as a horror fan, you're going to love this one. If, however, you are hesitant about YA, this may not be one for you, because the YA tones are very much amplified in The Suffering as opposed to in The Girl from the Well. Now, jumping into the actual story of this, obviously, to prevent any spoilers, I have to skirt around some issues, but essentially we are following Tark and Ukiku as they go to the infamous Japanese suicide forest, which is a real thing. This story jumps into that, where these two go to investigate a group of ghost finders, if you will, that have disappeared in the forest, along with one of Tark's friends from the first book. Like I said, the tone here is very different right from the start. It is less about killers and the awful creepy ghosts. Although there are ghosts in this, it's almost like urban fantasy where they're battling it out against these creatures rather than horror. So when we first jump into the story, Tark is kind of known now around the school and area he lives as the guy to go to if there are weird things going on. So people will call him if they think they are being haunted. He will go investigate, and along with the help of Okiku, will often get rid of whatever it is that is plaguing them. That said, he is still very much very much an outsider, not cared for by the people around him because they find him creepy, which he does nothing at all to dissuade. In fact, when people try to get close to him, he purposefully pushes them away or acts even crazier than he is so that they'll leave him alone. The majority of the book takes place in the Suicide Forest as we are following him, trying to figure out what happened to these people that have disappeared and what he can do to save them. Now, the thing here is that because we know that these supernatural forces are so strong within the forest, to kind of dampen down and let Tark become the main character here, there are reasons, but basically Okiku is very weak within the forest, and so Tark has to rely more on himself and more on the skills that he has picked up in the last bit of time to try and figure this out, save the people, and defeat these creatures within the forest. So again, very, very different. The shift is pretty intense actually, because I went directly from this into this thinking that I was going to get another horror. It did not feel like horror most of the time. There are still some, some scenes where there are elements of what The Girl from the Well was, but for the most part, again, this felt more like fantasy, more like urban fantasy, with, of course, a twist where we're getting kind of yokai and specters and spirits of the Japanese side. So still very enjoyable, very unique, very cool book. I did not enjoy the narration of Tark nearly as much as I did that of Okiku in the first book, but it is still a really cool book. I gave this one 5 stars. I loved it. We'll read it again in the future. I gave this one 4 stars. Still really enjoyed it, and we'll still read it again in the future. But if I'm going to suggest one or the other, I absolutely say pick up The Girl from the Well. This is great for any horror fan. If you want to know more about these characters and don't mind the sort of younger mentality that you'll get with a character like Tark, then this is still a great book. 4 stars on this one. And interestingly enough, there's one of you out there that tried to get me to read Rin Chupeco for a while. I'm glad that you did. You know who you are. I think you rated them the opposite that I did. You gave 4 stars to Girl in the Well and 5 stars to The Sacrifice. So I'm kind of interested if you comment down below why that was and what your reading process was like as opposed to mine. That's about going to do it, because I don't want to spoil anything for these books. But I think I've given you enough to certainly get you on the right track, to interest you if you are the type that's going to be interested by these books. But yeah, fantastic. I love the covers. They're so awesome. Even though I had to miss out on the beautiful cover that is The Girl from the Well there, I'm really happy with these two. And between the 3 books that I've read from Rin Chupeco so far, I'm really excited to get into the rest of her books. I'm hoping here very soon to pick up The Bone Witch, which is another series from her. I think right now it's a trilogy and there may be more, but I'm not entirely sure on that. But it's another one that sounds really intriguing. But there you go. If you have any further questions about these books, you want to know a little more, or you want to discuss them because you've read them, feel free to comment down below, or send me an email and we can talk there so that we're not spoiling anything for others. But that'll do it for today. I will be back again soon with some more reviews and some other exciting stuff. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. Stay safe. Drink great coffee. Cheers.